Have you ever noticed how some people smile at you with polished charm while secretly sharpening daggers behind their teeth? They act friendly in the daylight, yet plot in the shadows. They laugh at your calm, but deep down, they envy it. They mistake your quiet strength for weakness. They confuse your stillness with surrender. They believe your silence is submission. But here's what they don't understand, what they will never understand. Stillness is not weakness. Stillness is control. Picture this. The world around you is a storm. Voices rise, accusations fly, chaos spins like a whirlwind. Yet there you stand, unmoved, unshaken, untouched. Do you realize how terrifying that is to those who thrive on chaos? When your enemies hurl stones at your calm, they don't break you, they reveal you. They expose the depth of your strength. Welcome to Stoic True Wisdom. Today, I will reveal to you 4 powerful ways to hurt those who hate you without ever lifting a single finger. No shouting matches, no petty drama, no endless cycles of revenge. Just you becoming untouchable. Because the greatest punishment is not fighting back, not even proving them wrong. The greatest punishment is showing them you've already won. Think about it. Every enemy you've ever faced, every bitter soul who wanted to see you stumble, what was their greatest desire? It wasn't always money, fame, or even victory. No, what they craved most was your reaction, your anger, your attention, proof that they still mattered in your world. But what happens when you give them none of that? What happens when you starve them of the very oxygen they need to survive? They wither, they suffocate, and they fall apart under the crushing weight of your silence. This brings us to the first strike: silence. Your enemy wants chaos. They want to see you rage. They want you to scream, to fight, to throw your peace away just to prove they can still control you. But every time you remain unmoved, every time you choose stillness instead of shouting, you rob them of their power. Silence is not passive, it is a weapon. It is the sharpest blade in the arsenal of the Stoic. Epictetus once said, "It is not he who reviles or strikes you who insults you, but your opinion that these things are insulting." Think about that. The insult, the wound, the humiliation. None of it has power unless you hand it the key to your soul. You don't stay quiet because you are weak. You stay quiet because you are in control. They can spit fire, but you remain stone. And what happens when flames strike stone? They fizzle out. They die. Can you imagine the look on their faces when they realize their words, crafted like daggers, cannot pierce you? When their noise cannot stir your core? They unravel. They lose control, not because you attacked, but because you didn't. Nothing terrifies a chaotic soul more than a man they cannot disturb. And so we arrive at the second strike: discipline. Enemies thrive on weakness. They feed on the hope that you will stumble, that you will falter, that you will rot in the same soil where they've been stuck for years. They wait in the shadows, watching for cracks in your armor. But instead of slipping, you rise. Each morning you rise. Each day you train. Each night you reflect. While they waste hours drowning in bitterness, you sculpt yourself in silence. What do you think happens when a bitter man stares into the mirror of your discipline? He sees his own lack. He sees his wasted time. He sees what he could have been. And nothing cuts deeper than the silent reminder that you are living proof of his failure. Not because you sought to shame him, not because you spoke against him, but because your excellence exposed his mediocrity. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." You don't build yourself out of spite. You don't outgrow your enemies because you want revenge. You outgrow them because you refuse to rot in the same pit of hate where they have chosen to live. While they stew in resentment, you cultivate strength. While they waste their hours gossiping, you invest in growth. While they curse the world, you sculpt your soul. And slowly, silently, you rise so far above them that they can no longer touch you. Imagine their despair when they realize the man they once mocked, once underestimated, once tried to destroy, has become someone too far above to even notice them. That is power. That is control. That is victory. And so we come to the third strike, outliving their hate. Hatred is like a wildfire. It burns fast, it burns hot, and it burns itself out. But discipline? Discipline endures. Hatred devours its host. It eats away at the soul that carries it. But discipline is stone. It survives storms, centuries, even lifetimes. Hate is temporary, but the man who endures outlives it all. And so, as we saw before, real victory isn't about fighting harder, it's about rising higher. You don't just endure your enemies, you outlast them. Seneca, the great Stoic voice of reason, left us with a reminder that echoes through centuries. How much better it is to heal a wrong than to avenge one. Think about that. Anyone can lash back, anyone can return insult for insult, but the man who chooses to heal instead of retaliate, that man becomes untouchable. He cannot be chained to the same battlefield as those who tried to harm him. And Seneca was right. While your enemies drown in the endless sea of their own bitterness, you are quietly building. You are not frantic. You are not desperate. You are calm, steady, intentional. Your every breath carries purpose. Your every step is aligned with the vision of who you are becoming. They are wasting time reliving old wars in their minds, replaying grudges like broken records. But you are moving forward, brick by brick, building a fortress they can never reach. One day, without even realizing it, they will look up and see the truth. You're not even in the same world as them anymore. They are still locked in yesterday's war, still clutching weapons against ghosts that no longer matter. And you? You left the battlefield years ago. You walked away carrying no bitterness, no chains, no need for validation. And that is how you win without ever striking back. Because winning doesn't always look like triumph on the battlefield. Sometimes it looks like peace. Sometimes it looks like distance. Sometimes it looks like a man who simply chose to keep walking until the noise of his enemies faded into silence. And this leads us to the fourth strike, the strike that takes the most strength of all. Forgive them. And mean it. Yes, forgive. The very word makes some people recoil. How could I forgive someone who hurt me? How could I release someone who caused me so much pain? But forgiveness, true forgiveness, isn't about excusing them. It's about freeing yourself. You forgive not because they deserve it, but because you do. And when forgiveness comes from strength, not weakness, not softness, it cuts deeper than any insult ever could. Imagine standing before your enemy and declaring without words, "You no longer occupy space in my mind. You cannot poison me. You are not powerful enough to make me hate you." That realization breaks them more than any blow ever could. Monimus Rufus, another Stoic voice of clarity, taught, "It is not enough to refrain from harming others. We must also not wish them harm." Can you see the difference? Many men stop their hand but still carry violence in their heart. True power is when even your heart is free from hate. So when you forgive, not secretly, not half-heartedly, but openly, sincerely, with the weight of wisdom behind your words, you do something incredible. You turn their venom into vapor. Their last weapon, your attention, is stripped away. They wanted to live rent-free in your mind, but now the door is shut, locked and forgotten. And the world notices. People see it. They see a man who could have retaliated, who had every reason to lash back, but instead chose wisdom. They see a man who walked through fire, bore the scars, and yet still had the grace to say, "I release you." That is not weakness, that is mastery. Because the truth is this: you've already buried the damage. You've already carried it into the depths of your own transformation, and what emerged was not a wounded man, but an unshakable one. So you want to know how to break your enemies? Don't fight them. That's too easy, too predictable. Instead, outgrow them, outlast them, ignore them. And yes, ultimately forgive them. They want chaos. What do you give them? Silence. They crave your pain. What do you give them? Indifference. They long for war. What do you offer? Peace. And that peace, that peace becomes a weapon sharper than any sword. Because it is not a fragile peace. It is not a peace that bends or crumbles when provoked. No, it is the terrifying, immovable peace of a man who no longer needs revenge. And that peace will haunt them far longer than anger ever could. This is Stoic true wisdom. The wisdom that refuses to be dragged into petty battles. The wisdom that says, we don't react, we rise. We don't fight back, we walk forward. And we keep walking, not for a day, not for a year, but for as long as it takes until the noise of our enemies fades into nothing. Until the chaos that once tried to control us is so far behind that it sounds like silence.